My name is Samara Clark, and I will be reciting Chicago by Carl Sandburg. Hog butcher for the world, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and the nation's freight handler, stormy, husky, brawling, city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them. For I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked. And I answer, yes, it is true. I've seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal. And my reply is, on the faces of women and children, I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer at this, my city. And I give them back the sneer and say to them, come and show me another city with lifted heads singing, so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger set vivid against the little, soft cities. Fierce as a dog with tongue lapping for action. Cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness. Bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding under the smoke. Dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth. Under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs. Laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs who has never lost a battle. Bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs the heart of the people. Laughing. Laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half-naked, sweating. Proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and freight handler to the nation.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
My name is Mary Rose Flanagan. I'm representing the National Endowment for the Arts, and I'm here today to showcase, with the help of some of our state and international champions, the Poetry Out Loud program. Poetry Out Loud, National Recitation Contest, is a unique program with an ambitious goal to bring poetry into the lives of high school students by having them learn and perform great poems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the students. There's going to be 3 of them, and they're going to come up here and perform. But first I'm going to introduce Youssef Biaz. Born in Morocco, Youssef Biaz now lives in Auburn, Alabama, and represented his state as a national finalist at the 2010 Poetry Out Loud competition in Washington, D.C. Along with running and playing guitar, Youssef enjoys practicing Michael Jackson dance routines. Maybe he'll do that for you. His favorite authors are Hemingway, Sartre, and Camus. Please welcome Youssef Biaz.
Mrs. Krikorian by Sharon Olds. She saved me. When I arrived in 6th grade, a known criminal, the new teacher asked me to stay after school the first day. She said, "I've heard about you." She was a tall woman with a deep crevice between her breasts and a large, calm nose. She said, "This is a special library pass. As soon as you finish your hour's work," that hour's work that took 10 minutes, and then the devil glanced into the room and found me empty. a house standing open. You can go to the library. Every hour, I'd zip through the work in a dash and slip out of my seat as if out of God's side and sail down to the library, solo through the empty, powerful halls, flash my pass, and stroll over to the dictionary to look up the most interesting word I knew, spank, dipping 2 fingers into the jar of library paste to suck that tart mucilage as I came to the page with the Cocker Spaniel silks curling up like the fine steam of the body. After spank and breast, I'd move on to Abe Lincoln and Helen Keller, safe in their goodness till the bell. Thanks to Mrs. Krikorian, amiable giantess with the kind eyes. When she asked me to write a play and direct it, and it was a flop, and I hid in the coat closet, she brought me a candy cane. As you lay a peppermint on the tongue, and the worm will come up out of the bowel to get it. And so I was emptied of Lucifer and filled with school glue and Eros and Amelia Earhart, saved by Mrs. Krikorian. And who had saved Mrs. Krikorian? When the Turks came across Armenia, who slid her into the belly of a quilt? Who locked her in a chest? Who mailed her to America? And that one who saved her, and that one who saved her, to save the one who saved Mrs. Krikorian, who was standing there on the sill of 6th grade, a wide-hipped angel, smoky hair standing up weightless all around her head. I end up owing my soul to so many, to the Armenian nation. One more soul someone jammed behind a stove, drove deep into a crack in a wall, shoved under a bed. I would wake up in the morning under my bed, not knowing how I had got there, and lie in the dusk. The dust balls beside my face, round and ashen, shining slightly with the eerie comfort of what is neither good nor evil. Playing Dead by Andrew Hudgens. Our father liked to play a game. He played that he was dead. He took his thick black glasses off and stretched out on the bed. He wouldn't twitch and didn't snore or move in any way. He didn't even seem to breathe. We asked, "Are you okay?" We tickled fingers up and down his huge, pink, stinky feet. He didn't move. He lay as still as last year's parakeet. We pushed our fingers up his nose and wiggled them inside. Next, we peeled his eyelids back. "Are you okay?" we cried. I really thought he might be dead and not just playing possum, because his eyeballs didn't twitch when I slid my tongue across him. "He's dead," we sobbed. But to be sure, I jabbed him in the jewels. He rose like Jesus from the dead. Though I don't think Jesus drools. His right hand lashed both right and left. His left hand clutched his scrotum, and the words he yelled, I know damn well I'm way too young to quote him. Well, when I first was going to do the school contest for Auburn High, I just went blindly on the website and looked for a poem that I was looking for something that spoke to me. And I found Mrs. Krikorian. And it was really strange. I relate to the character who's speaking because I remember those days in middle school when I would just be really bored by busy work and that hours work would just take 10 minutes and then I'd have nothing to do and cause a lot of trouble for my teachers. And I really enjoyed the idea of a teacher that saved you. And so when I found that, I was like, this is for me. And that was the poem that I first chose and that initially won me the school contest. And so that was that. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Will Witham. Will Witham is a two-time Poetry Out Loud state champion from Maine. Now a freshman at Harvard University, Will loves to fly kites, act in plays, and read the newspaper. Among his favorite poets are Shel Silverstein, John Donne, and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and Walt Whitman. Please welcome Will Witham.
Hi. Come Up from the Fields, Father, by Walt Whitman. Come up from the fields, Father. Here's a letter from our Pete. And come to the front door, Mother. Here's a letter from my dear son. Lo, 'tis autumn. Lo, where the trees, deeper green, yellower and redder, cool and sweet in Ohio's villages with leaves fluttering in the moderate wind, where apples ripe in the orchards hang and grapes on the trellised vines. Smell you the smell of the grapes on the vines? Smell you the buckwheat where the bees were lately buzzing? Above all, lo, the sky so calm, so transparent after the rain, and with wondrous clouds. Below, too, all calm, all vital and beautiful, and the farm prospers well. Down in the fields, all prospers well. But now, from the fields come, Father, come at the daughter's call, and come to the entry, Mother, to the front door, come right away. Fast as she can, she hurries, something ominous, her steps trembling. She does not tarry to smooth her hair nor adjust her cap. Open the envelope quickly. Oh, this is not our son's writing, yet his name is signed. Oh, a strange hand writes for our dear son. Oh, stricken mother's soul, all swims before her eyes, flashes with black. She catches the main words only, sentences broken. Gunshot wound in the breast, cavalry skirmish, taken to hospital. At present low, but will soon be better. Ah, now, the single figure to me, amid all teeming and wealthy Ohio with all its cities and farms, sickly white in the face and dull in the head, very faint, by the jamb of a door leans. Grieve not so, dear mother, the just-grown daughter speaks through her sobs. The little sisters huddle around speechless and dismayed. See, dearest mother, the letter says Pete will soon be better. Alas, poor boy, he will never be better, nor maybe needs to be better, that brave and simple soul. While they stand at home at the door, he is dead already. The only son is dead. But the mother needs to be better. She, with thin form, presently dressed in black. By day, her meals untouched. Then at night, fitfully sleeping, often waking, in the midnight, waking, weeping, longing with one deep longing. Oh, that she might withdraw unnoticed, silent from life, escape and withdraw, to follow, to seek, to be with her dear, dead son. Doña Josefina counsels Doña Concepcion before entering Sears by Maurice Kilwain Guevara. Conchita, debemos to speak totalmente in English cuando we go into Sears, okay? ¿Por qué? Porque didn't you hear lo que pasó? It say on the 11 o'clock news anoche que 2 robbers was caught in Sears. And now, this is the part I'm not completely segura que I got everything. Porque Channel 2 tiene, tú sabes, that big fat guy that's hard to understand. Porque his nose sit on his lip like an elefante. Pues, the point is que the robbers, the police, was 2 young men, pretty big. Y one have a hairy face and the other is calvo. That's right, he's baldy. And okay, believe me, que barbaridad. Porque hairy face and Mr. Baldy goes right into the underwear department, takes all the money from the caja. Yeah, the cash register. And mira, Mr. Baldi goes to this poor Italian woman that I guess would be like us, 60 or 65, who is in the section of the back support brasiers. And he makes her put a big bra over her head para que she can't see nothing, and kneel like she's talking to God to save her poor life, and other things, horrible. Pero the point, como dije, es que there was 2 of them, and both were speaking Spanish. Y por eso, it's a good thing, Conchita, so the people at Sears don't confuse us with Harry and Baldi, that we speak English only. Okay? Ready? Oh, what a nice day to be aquí en Sears. Misconception. So that's a pretty good question. It's different for different people, I guess, but I usually just try to take it, a few lines at a time, a few sentences at a time, and you just drill it in. And it's incredible because, if you try to memorize something one night and then you come back to it the next day, you'll find that you've retained a lot of the material, but if you try to do it all on the same day, you'll forget it. So it's sort of like a gradual process, and yeah, you just take it in steps. I remember this year, for my school competition, I only had to recite 1 poem for that. And then I won my school competition, and then we had a regional that was the next week, and I had to have an additional 2 poems memorized. So I had about 5 days to memorize 2 poems. And yeah, you just sit down and do it, and it's hard, but it's like studying for a test, I guess. You just go through it, you say it to yourself, say it in the shower, say them before you go to bed, and just really just let it sink in, let it become a part of you. So yeah.
Thank you, Will. I have one more question. So how did you know to do recitation so well, and how did you avoid the over-dramatization? Was there a coach involved, or did you just figure it out from materials? How do you...
I'm not really sure. There's a really thin line between, over-dramatizing it and then doing it really, subtly. And you definitely see that at the competition, even at nationals. I remember last year, during my junior year, the kid who won, William Farley, was just, obviously Amber was awesome. But I remember Will left a really strong impression on me because he was so ridiculously undramatic. He was so honest and almost deadpan in a sense, but he was just, I don't know, he was just so straightforward about it. And I think that's what Amber is able to convey as well. I think that's what the judges try to look for, is just that honesty instead of that, sort of that exaggerated tone that you might see sometimes at some poetry readings. But yeah, just trying to make it as honest as possible is really important. And yeah, I think we all try to do that as best we can. But yeah, just trying to be true to yourself and true to the poem, and that's all you can do.
Next, I want to introduce Amber Rose Johnson. Last April, Amber Rose Johnson, a junior at Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island, won the title of National Champion at the 2010 Poetry Out Loud National Finals. She advanced from a very competitive field to claim a $20,000 prize. As the POL national champion, Amber has been a guest on NPR's To the Best of Our Knowledge, alongside Natalie Merchant, Bobby McFerrin, and Ray Armatrout, and others. Amber also participated in the panel on poetry at the American Library Association conference held in DC this summer, and will perform along Rhode Island poets at the Library of Congress's Poetry at Noon series on October 19th. Her favorite poets are Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni, and she hopes to pursue a career in public policy and political science. Welcome, Amber.
Hello, hello. Oh, my dad's right there. I was looking for him, but he's right there. Aren't they amazing? Can we yeah. So I'm gonna do the last piece that I did at the national competitions this year. It's called For My People by Margaret Walker. For my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years and the now years and the maybe years. Washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. For my playmates, in the clay and dust and sand of Alabama backyards, playing, baptizing and preaching, and doctor and jail and soldier and school and mama and cooking and playhouse and concert and store and hair and Miss Chumby and company. For the cramped, bewildered years we went to school to learn to know the reasons why, and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when. In memory of the bitter hours when we discovered we were Black and poor and small and different, and nobody cared. And nobody wondered, and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. For my people, walking blindly spreading joy, losing time being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless, tied and shackled, entangled among ourselves by the unseen creatures who tower over us omnisciently and laugh. For my people thronging 47th Street in Chicago, and Lenox Avenue in New York, and Rampart Street in New Orleans. Lost, disinherited, dispossessed, and happy people, filling the cabarets and taverns in other people's pockets and looking for bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something all our own. For my people, blundering and groping and floundering in the dark of churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees and conventions, distressed and disturbed and deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches. Preyed on by facile force of state and fad and novelty, by false prophet and holy believer. For my people standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and a strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and in our blood. Let the martial songs be written. Let the dirges disappear. Let a race of men now rise and take control. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. I wanted to ask you a question too. Besides the cash prize, you are about halfway through your tenure as Poetry Out Loud National Champion. Yeah. And in my introduction, I read off a series of public appearances you've been making, and you've been talking about poetry as well as about your life, and I know you have a political career perhaps ahead of you. I want you to talk a little bit about what it has meant to be a Poetry Out Loud National Champion to you, and what is there any difference before you won the title and now, and what you've learned and what this has meant to you?
Wow, that's quite the question. Becoming national champion has absolutely changed my life. My entire life, whoop, done. Old Amber is completely gone, completely changed. It's definitely a big change from being a state champion to national champion. And I remember I competed 2 years ago as well, when Shantae Henry was the national champion. And I remember looking at her and looking at Will Farley and being like, man, they're so cool. Like, I want to be them. And now that I'm in it, it's absolutely amazing. The way I used to see the national champion, I know that people are looking at me that way, and just knowing that other students are getting the same feeling. But you also have a certain level of responsibility as national champion, definitely. Wherever I go, I don't just want to talk about myself. I want to talk about all the amazing state champions. I want to talk about the entire experience and how Poetry Out Loud is still growing. It's insane. I feel like every morning I wake up and sometimes I'm like, whoa, I'm the national champion. Like, it never really hits you, it never really sinks in. I think I'll finally understand it when I'm at the nationals in April and handing off the title. Maybe that's when it will hit me, but as of right now, I'm kind of still in the whirlwind.
We have some time, so I have one more question. I also wanted to ask you the methodology question. How do you choose poems? Are you still memorizing poems? And, for all the poetry lovers in the audience, what does it mean to you to internalize a poem, and how do you memorize, and how do you go about your work with that?
In terms of choosing my poem, it was always really a family experience. I have great family support at home. My dad's here with me today. And it was always the whole family that kind of chose the poem, because wherever I go, I want to speak life. I want to carry a positive image. So I kind of didn't want any poems that were overly sad or depressing or anything like that. I wanted a poem that reflected me and reflected something positive. And in terms of memorizing, like Will said, that's definitely a gradual process. It's not something that happens overnight. It's just about, taking it one step at a time, trying not to get overwhelmed. If you do motions, if everybody's trying to memorize a poem, do motions. That helps. It does. Like if you're trying to remember something and you do a motion, it'll definitely click. But I had a coach for this year. Last year when I competed, I didn't have a coach, and that definitely helped. But it's trying to find the heartbeat of the poem. Because when you do poetry out loud, I think what Will was trying to get at between the difference between a recitation and a performance, or that word, is when you find the heartbeat of the poem. Because I want to take Amber out of the poem. I'm sure they want to take Will and Yusuf out of the poem. That's not what the performance is about. It's about finding the heartbeat of the poem, finding the heartbeat of the author that wrote the poem, really understanding and letting the words speak for themselves. And that's when you really master a poem, when you can let the words speak for themselves and take yourself completely out of it. So.
We have time for one more quick one. And has this helped you in your writing at all? And do you write poetry? Or is this just a separate art for you completely?
Poetry out loud kind of has touched every area of my life. It definitely helps when it comes, when your English teacher tells you you're doing a poetry segment. I'm like, yes, my favorite segment. But it definitely has changed my writing and the way I look at words, because I understand how powerful words can really be now. And I understand that the way you structure something on a page, or the way you put two words together, can really completely change the impact of the poem and the meaning of the poem. So I definitely take that into consideration. But I've also found that now whenever I look at a poem or whenever I hear a poem, I think about so much more than just listening. I think about what the author was going through when they wrote that poem. I think about what that poem was supposed to mean. I think about the time that it was written. I think about the person who's reciting it. And when you do a competition like that, you really start to break down a poem, and it means much more than just, something written on a page.